to Adventure Unfiltered. This week's guest is Alice Goodridge of Swim Wild. Now, the very first time I saw Alice was on the cover of a national newspaper several years ago when she was whacking the ice with a sledgehammer to go for a swim. Little did I know at the time that she would live only a couple of villages along from where I live now in the Highlands of Scotland. So it was an absolute pleasure when Alice came round to my house for a chat, a cup of coffee in front of the fire on a really cold autumn day, looking out on the hills and talking about swimming. I learned that despite having a fear of deep water, she went on to swim the English Channel solo and the 41 kilometres of Loch Awe. We talked about that front cover picture on the newspapers, and we spoke about how the media love those photographs because they're dramatic, the ice, the cold, the sheer otherworldliness of it all. Yet Alice is so much more than the images that end up on the front pages. She swims all year round, not for spectacle, but for connection. She's built a thriving swim community in the Cairngorms and beyond through Swim Wild UK. She guides people into water with gentleness and care, and she speaks about cold water, not as a stunt, but as a way of reconnecting with nature, with the breath, and with yourself. That mix of groundedness, quiet courage, and deep community spirit is the thread running through everything she shares in this week's episode of Adventure Unfiltered. So why does this conversation matter? At a time where life feels busy, digital, and relentlessly fast, Alice offers a way back to something slower and deeper. Cold water becomes a reset, a way to reconnect with place, with others, and with ourselves. I learned from Alice that wild swimming is not about distance or drama, it's about returning to something steady, honest, and restorative. So let's go. Alice Goodridge with Breaking Waves, wild swimming and cold water connection. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. Wow, that was so lovely. And I've got a little one. He's just turned 2. I haven't done quite so many adventurous things, but actually that just brings together a lot of the things I have done and will continue to do.
I was obviously doing a wee bit of research and you were on the front cover of, was it The Scotsman? Smashing ice.
Yeah, I've been on the front page of various national newspapers. I was on the front page of The Times, front page of The Telegraph, possibly the front page of The Scotsman. That was quite a few years ago now. I do break the ice to swim in the winter. Those images just captured a moment of my life rather than it being anything extraordinary. Yeah. So for them to sort of go a bit wild and have these pictures all over everywhere, that feels really strange to me. I don't only break the ice to swim. I break the ice to swim in the winter. I say swim, that's a loose term, like dip my shoulders under in the winter because I'm not smashing that much ice that it's a huge channel to swim in. But I also break the ice with a sledgehammer so my horses have water in the winter. So yes. I've always got a sledgehammer with me. It's part of my life in the winter. And I know for a lot of people that might seem strange, but that's just me and my life.
That's just what you do. No, I think it's absolutely amazing. I mean, I've not been doing cold water dipping for all that long, really, just the kind of last couple of years. And I saw that image and I remember before I moved up here to the Highlands, I saw that image and I was like, wow, look at this insane woman smashing the ice and going into the water. I don't think I could ever do that. And actually, I am building up to it gradually.
You could do it. You could do it 100%.
Well, I should probably, for context, Alice lives near me up here in the Highlands of Scotland. But of course, your accent tells us different. So what brought you up here to the Highlands?
So adventure, I guess. Both myself and my husband were in a position where we could kind of live anywhere for our various jobs. I was studying at the time, was doing a master's and then a PhD, but that was only loosely based around a certain university. And my research was overseas, so it meant that I could be anywhere. I mean, the short answer to the question of how we ended up here was it was somewhere that my husband had lived previously when he did his mountain training. So he was a summer and winter mountain leader. So he did a lot of his training up here and then a lot of work up here leading expeditions. So it was an area that was really close to his heart. And so when we wanted to settle somewhere, but it needed to be somewhere adventurous, somewhere with mountains for him, somewhere with water for me.
Yeah, and I mean, what a place to live.
People say, did I move up for the swimming? Like, not specifically. I was already a swimmer. I was already an open water swimming coach and leading and guiding trips out overseas. But I knew that I needed to have water close by for my swimming. But I didn't move up here and go, I'm going to set up a swim business here. I moved up here, did various other things, and then it all just fell into place in terms of more and more people in the UK wanting to swim outdoors, and me realising that people did want to swim with me. I wasn't just going to be on my own swimming, which was sort of what happened at the beginning. I also love going up into the hills and swimming in mountain lochs as well. And yeah, it's just a magical place.
Yeah, it really is. Take me back though. What was your first memory of outdoor swimming? So when was your first outdoor swimming experience? Was it when you were wee? Was it as an adult?
I've always been a swimmer, but I was very much a pool swimmer. In terms of outdoor swimming, I mean, holidays, family holidays. My grandmother used to live in North Wales and there were loads of amazing beaches. I don't really remember swimming there, but I'm sure I definitely dipped my toe in and sort of ran and splashed in and out of the water. I still have a very vivid imagination, but I remember as a little one just like basically believing I was a mermaid. So
I love that.
When like, in the swimming pool, I was just like swimming along and I was like,
basically
yeah, obviously.
are a mermaid though, let's be honest.
But I also had a fear of the deep water in the diving area of the swimming pool. And I definitely was convinced that there were sharks in there. So like that overactive imagination, which has definitely crept over into open water swimming as well. I transitioned from pool to open water because I wanted to give myself more of a challenge. And the swimming I do now is very different from the swimming I did when I first got into open water swimming. That was very much, I have a 5K swim to train for. I'm going to do my training in the pool and then just go and do a 5-kilometre open water swim between the islands of Malta and Gozo.
Oh, wow. Oh, did you? Wow.
Yeah, it was a charity challenge. There was a support boat next to me.
Good.
That didn't just head out. That was my first experience of open water swimming. And then from there, I very quickly moved on to doing longer and longer open water swims. So the kind of swimming I do now is more what people would see as wild swimming, or cold water swimming, getting into amazing bodies of water. Yes, doing a bit of swimming, but a lot of it is about looking around, being in the moments, enjoying the surroundings, being part of a community. But that initial start was all about training. Yes. It was all about the goal at the end, which kept moving and kept getting bigger and bigger.
Was there any point where you stopped and actually looked around and got quite scared, or were you just so focused?
I was 100% terrified. It wasn't the distance that scared me. It was what was in the water and the depth of the water. So at no point did I look and go, oh my goodness, that's really far away. I'm really scared that I'm not going to be able to make it. I had a support boat. There were other swimmers around me, but I was absolutely terrified about the deep water. I hadn't appreciated that. When you say I might have done some open water before, like literally this was my first open water swim.
Wow.
I did a couple of training dips in water where I could see the bottom, and we had to swim up to the cliffs and touch them because that was our starting point, and then swim across. I just always, for some reason, believe that I'm going to be the first open water swimmer that's eaten alive by a sea monster that no one's ever seen or heard of. She just gets picked off. Maybe
this is, the past trauma of the swimming pool when you thought the sharks were the deep end.
I don't know.
I'm really keen to know, with all these really big adventures and these really big swims that you've done, were you so laser focused, or was there any point where you thought, this is too much, or how am I going to get through this? How am I going to cope with this?
Do you know what? When it gets to the actual swim, I always have belief that I am capable of getting to the end. So I don't necessarily have those moments in the swim. That doesn't mean that in the time leading up to the swim, I don't have massive moments of self-doubt. The English Channel was an interesting one. I did my long swim and someone there spotted that I was a capable long distance swimmer and then basically talked me into signing up for an English Channel solo swim. So 2 years down the line, I had an English Channel boat. You have a boat and a pilot. Then I had that goal. And then I went on this journey. All I'd done was one 5K open water swim in warm water. So I then had to learn about swimming through the winter without a wetsuit in order to acclimatise. I had to do some really, really, really brutal training swims. I used to go down to Dover Harbour and swim up and down the harbour some of those swims were absolutely vile. Like, I couldn't do it. I felt like everyone was better than me. I felt like a bit of an imposter. But over those 2 years, I did the training. I did everything that I needed to do. I knew with the English Channel that I was capable of doing it. I'm not quite sure where this blind self-belief comes from, but
it's wonderful.
I knew that I was capable of doing it, but I also knew that I might not make it because Mother Nature might come and take that away from me. I did a couple of relays before that where you share the swimming with other people. So there were 6 people in the team and you have to swim for an hour at a time and you rotate around. And the first one of those I ever did, I was in the water. We'd been in for about 13 hours and I was in the water and everyone started shouting at me from the boat. Obviously, my overactive imagination goes, oh my goodness, what's that? What's in the water? And I looked around and there was nothing there. It was perfectly flat, calm. And I was like, okay, just keep going out. And they were waving and they were telling me to come back towards the boat. And I was like, if you touch the boat at any point, that disqualifies the swim. So I got to the back of the boat and I literally was treading water with my arms in the air. Like, are you sure? Are you sure? And they said, yes, you've got to get out. You've got to get out. So I climbed up the ladder. And as soon as I put my hands on there, I knew that I disqualified the swim and I didn't know what the reason was. But essentially, it had gone down to 0 visibility. There was just blanket fog. And we were in the middle of one of the shipping lanes. We didn't see a single ship. We could just hear foghorns. And so it just basically become a dangerous situation. It's not up to you whether you get to cross the channel. Like, you can put all the training in, you can do it. But actually, the day you get might not be the day for you. Maybe because of that, I thought that I just have to give it my best try. And I have to just do everything I can to be in a position to get to the other side. And thankfully, on the day that I did make it. It wasn't perfect conditions. In fact, it was much rougher conditions than I'd swum in any of my relays, but it was swimmable. I got to the other side.
That's incredible. What did you tell yourself when you talked about doubting yourself on those days and moments running up to the swim? How did you push through those kind of negative thoughts surrounding your confidence at that point?
I think the key thing here, and what has then showed through later in my swimming career, as it were, community. There were other people there. I wasn't the only one. There were other people having a miserable time. I wasn't the only one. So we could get to the wall at the end and go, oh my goodness, this is awful. Or we could get out and have that collective, like, that was horrible, but we did it. There were also other people in there that I was just inspired by. One of my mantras, maybe not so much for the training, although it did happen towards the end of my training when I was doing some of those longer training swims, if she can do it, I can do it.
I love that.
It was the women that had gone before me that I was so inspired by. And it wasn't necessarily that they were like super athletic and they could do it. It was actually the opposite. It was that maybe they were a lot older than me, or maybe I'd had conversations with them and I'd seen that they also doubted themselves and they had gone ahead and they had achieved it.
It's really interesting what you said there about how it was when they showed vulnerability that you felt inspired. When you look at somebody who's done something incredible and you instantly think, I don't know if I could achieve that because that's absolutely massive. But if they talk about maybe how difficult it was for them or, you know, their journey to get there, and you realise it's like, hey, I feel exactly the same. It just makes such a difference. But community is so important when it comes to these things. You have created a community. When you talk about it was the community that got you through that. Perhaps that was something that then inspired you to create the community that you've created today. So obviously through your business, through Swim Wild, but also the Loch-Inch Dippers. And I have had the absolute pleasure of swimming with the Loch-Inch Dipper several times. The women and men that were there were just so welcoming, so inspiring as well. And what really struck me was how open everybody was. I felt like it was just these great big warm arms that just came round about me and welcomed me into that community. For me, connection is incredibly important, and that is something that you've created.
Yeah, so I suppose the story of creating the Loch-Inch Dippers, I mean, there's quite a bit that came before it. When I did move up to the area, initially it was just a base, as I touched on at the beginning, in terms of myself and my husband were overseas a lot, so I wasn't here all the time. I remember because I was training for another long swim, which was the length of Lake Zurich. I really struggled because I came from this place where I had all my swim friends down south. I kind of had this community and this way of training down there. And when I got up here, I was just all alone when it came to swimming. I had moved up to the area. I didn't know anyone in this area at all, but I so missed the community. I just longed to have those people to swim with, those swim friends, that swim family that I kind of left behind. Initially, for the first couple of years when I wasn't here full time, I used to go up every weekend to Loch Ness, and I used to swim with a group called the Wild Highlanders, who still swim there and who are a fantastic bunch of incredibly hardy swimmers. I just think they're amazing. Yes, it might not freeze and get quite as cold, but the conditions that we used to swim in there and that they still swim in there, the wind whistles along, the waves are huge, there's no shelter for changing, it's absolutely brutal. So I used to go up and I knew that they had a swim every Saturday morning, and if I was in the UK, if I was in Scotland, I would go and swim with them without fail. I made friends, it was really, really lovely, but I was bypassing all the water on my doorstep. I decided to set up a group called the Cairngorm Wild Swimmers. And that, before COVID, that grew into quite a large group. Now it is a Saturday morning swim with the Cairngorm Wild Swimmers and a Sunday morning swim with the Loch-Inch Dippers. Loch-Inch Dippers has now grown arms and legs, having that initial starting point of a weekly swim that people could come to. I know it doesn't suit everybody in terms of timing, but it is cohesive enough to bring a core group together, which then can spur off and do other things as well. So to me, that was really, really important. To swim with other people, you get such a different experience. I think people go potentially for the colds, for the water, for the nature and the submersion, but I think people stay and come back because of that support and the community.
Alice, what's the most unexpected or surreal thing that's happened for you during a swim?
Ooh, unexpected or surreal. I was leading a swim expedition in the Outer Hebrides. So we had a boat and we were staying on the boat, and we got this weather window to head out to St Kilda, which was absolutely incredible. So we're on the boat, we arrived in Village Bay in St Kilda, and we got to swim to shore. So our entry of getting onto St Kilda, or the main island, was to jump in off the boat and then swim to shore. So that was amazing. We had such a good weather window that time that we were able to spend 2 nights there. So we also got to do another long swim. So the other swim we got to do was, we got in off the boat. I had planned it. I am the safety person. I knew what we were doing. It was also just so incredible because we kind of had an end point, and I saw that there was this cave in the distance, and I was like, well, let's use that as our focus point. We're swimming towards that. So we swam towards it. And as you got closer to it, there was a waterfall coming down over the mouth of the cave. I couldn't tell from a distance whether we could get through into that cave, but we thought we would get there. As we were approaching, there was a waterfall, but it looked like you could swim through the waterfall into the cave. So we had a go. We had kayaks as well. So this was safety and risk assessed before we actually went in. They went in first. So we swam through into the cave, and as we were swimming towards the waterfall, the sun, the angle of the sun just suddenly started shining through the waterfall. It was like a rainbow. And when you got into the cave, it was really lit up. It wasn't like a dark, dingy cave. It was really bright in there because the sun was shining through. I remember being in there and just thinking, I can't believe it. This is just an amazing experience. And that wasn't the end of it, because when we swam back through, there were puffins everywhere. We kind of had tried to swim around and not disturb the puffins, but the puffins were not bothered. So we just swam. We just swam through. And there were puffins literally diving down in the water underneath us, like doing their little flying through the water thing. Yeah, I think that was one of my most incredible experiences. Firstly, just being able to get to St Kilda, which was a dream in itself, being able to swim in pretty good conditions in St Kilda. The colour of the water was like this jadey, beautiful, almost emeraldy green. That was one of my most incredible swim experiences. I've had loads of amazing experiences, but that's just one that sticks out.
That's wild, especially with the puffins. Maybe it's feeding into the dream of being a mermaid. Maybe that's why it was so
my
magical.
Puffins are my puffin sidekicks.
That sounds incredible. Let's talk about the book. So your book, Swimming Wild in Scotland, features over 100 swim spots. How did you choose what to include?
Oh my goodness, that was the hardest thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so actually researching the book was really good. I really enjoyed that. I knew a lot of swim spots in Scotland already, but there were certain areas in Scotland that I hadn't been to before. So I'd never been to Shetland, I'd never been to Orkney. And so that was incredible, getting to go and research these swim spots. But actually whittling it down to 100, well, there were quite a few battles with the publisher between myself and the publisher. Well, I felt like there were battles. They probably were just like, no, that's it. but essentially, when I first went to them, I wanted it to be 3 books because I felt like there were so many places in Scotland that I couldn't possibly fit it into 1 book. But then it was decided that it was going to be just 1 book. And I kind of took a step back and was like, do I still really want to do this? Because I don't know if I can do it justice with just 1 book. I could see where they were coming from. Someone's potentially going to buy a book on the whole of Scotland rather than a particular part of Scotland, like just the islands or just northern Scotland. So I decided that, okay, I will do this. But actually whittling it down was really difficult. And I had to go for a combination of locations. They had certain criteria. So they had to be as accessible as possible. There are a few with longer walks, but there's nothing that most people couldn't do. Mm-hmm. So, and I make it quite clear when there is a long walk, and if there is a walk on there, it's normally on a really good track. There's nothing that's particularly too adventurous, which I also find a little bit challenging because a lot of my favourite swims are places that are quite inaccessible to get to. So it's that kind of balance of having a little bit of adventure, but also having the places that are accessible, that it's sustainable for more people to go to. That was really important to me, that there was parking that people could use, that, you know, I wasn't just saying, oh, this is a great swim spot, but actually you have to park in a passing place. Like, that is not that is not possible. We are not doing that. We're not encouraging people to do things like that. We want car parks. We want potentially some facilities. So quite a few of them have got cafes nearby or something. I know that maybe doesn't sound like such wild swimming, but I think you would agree that swimming in Loch Morlich, for instance, as one of our local ones, is pretty wild.
Yes.
And incredible. So, and for someone who doesn't live up here, the chance to swim there and know that, you know, you want to get in at the beach end, and in the summer the boathouse is open and there's a cafe upstairs, and those kinds of things are really useful information.
Really important. If you're relatively new to wild swimming and you want to venture further than maybe the reservoir or the loch or the bit of water that you are dipping in, a book like yours is perfect because it gives you all that information. And I'm sorry, but I want a coffee and a cake after my wild swim and somewhere to park the car, because you know where you're going. And your book is absolutely fantastic and gives really fantastic detail about where to go and what to do. And I think maybe when you are quite new to it, I think it's so important to kind of follow the guide and knowing where to go and what to do, I think, and it's illustrated beautifully as well.
Each part of Scotland, I tried to just, you know, pick a couple of top spots that are safe, as long as you do follow safety advice. Yes, I have put a few rivers in there, but, you know, I definitely drill home that you shouldn't be swimming in them if they're flowing fast, and how to check and all those kinds of things. But also a few spots that were a little bit more of a surprise for me when I was researching them. Yes, there's always coastal swims, river swims, even loch swims. There are going to be times where it isn't safe to swim, but giving the sort of widest option in terms of, you know, this is generally going to be a really sheltered place. It was an amazing experience. I really, really enjoyed it. But if anyone is going to a particular area and wants more than just 1 or 2 swim spots, they just need to contact me directly, because I probably have about 20 for them. Because for every swim spot that ended up in the book, there were probably sort of between 5 and 10 that then within a reasonably close area that didn't end up in there.
Yeah. Okay, Alice, what are your top tips for before, during and after a swim?
So I think it depends on your starting point, but if you're completely new and you're starting off, the first tip is trying to find people to swim with, because that's really important. And whether that is joining a group, as we've talked already, or whether that is just finding that one other person that will come in the water with you, that's really important for safety, for motivation, to have that person to have a silly but amazingly enjoyable experience with. That's really important. So much of the swim is in the planning beforehand. So yes, it's wonderful to be spontaneous, but actually in Scotland particularly, but also elsewhere, you know, the water is quite cold. So you might want to plan and have the right kit with you, and make sure that the location you're going to swim in is going to be a safe location. So some of the things you can do in my guidebook, it talks about different locations around Scotland, but equally joining a local group, they may have a spot that they swim, which isn't necessarily included in the book, but that is, if it is somewhere people regularly swim, they will know all the safety things to look out for in that particular place. Yeah, planning, having the right kit with you, making sure that you've not only got appropriate kit to get into the water, and I'm not saying you need a lot. If you want to swim in a bikini, that's absolutely fine. If it is a stony entry, having something for your feet, having a nice woolly hat for afterwards, having lots of layers for afterwards. Even in the summer, you know, making sure that you've got those extra layers for afterwards. When we're swimming in the UK, particularly, the water is cold. So it is going to take your breath away if you're not used to it. Being aware that firstly, it's going to be really hard to get in. That is just a fact. It doesn't really get that much easier to get in. It just, you just become more used to it and used to learning how to deal with it. So it is going to be hard to get in. It is potentially going to take your breath away. And those first 1 to 3 minutes are really important in terms of getting, regulating your breathing. So as you get into the water, your body will automatically take a really big breath in. Potentially you'll want to hold your breath or just keep breathing in. Some people say it's like, you know, just can't quite catch their breath. It kind of like runs away from them, this sort of. So what you really want to do is focus on the exhale. So focusing on breathing out and making sure that that breath out is longer than the inhale. I actually think that just going in with other people really helps at this point as well, because generally you might be chatting, or you might be singing, or you might be shouting, or you might be swearing. All of those things. It's true.
It's true.
But all of those things mean that you're distracted and you're not necessarily going to be holding your breath. It might be that you catch yourself, other people are chatting and you catch yourself being quiet, and it's because you're kind of holding your breath. In that instance, you want to really relax the shoulders, push those shoulders down, make the gap between your ears and your shoulders as big as possible, and kind of relax into it and exhale. After the first 1 to 3 minutes, your breathing will start to settle, and that's when you get the really good bit. That's when you get the amazing sensation of, okay, I see why people do this now. It isn't just a horrible torture event. It is actually something enjoyable. Then you can do your swim. I guess my top tip for starting out is keep it short. Allow your breathing to settle and then just swim for a minute or so. You don't have to do anything major, or let your breathing settle, dip your shoulders under, get out again. It's not a competition. There's no particular time you need to stay in. It's completely up to you. And if you're just starting out, the most important thing is you learn how your body reacts to the cold. So learn how to settle your breathing. Enjoy the water for a short amount of time and then get out, because when you do get out, your body temperature continues to cool down. So you don't want to be in the water and get to a point where you feel too cold.
Yeah.
Because if you feel too cold in the water, then you're just going to be even colder 15 minutes to half an hour after you get out. So it's really important to actually get in, allow your breathing to settle, do your swim. And I'm not going to prescribe that because you might be an experienced swimmer, you might have done a lot, or it might be your first time. So allow that breathing to settle, do your swim, but make sure that you're getting out before you're feeling too cold. There's something called the after drop, and that is when your core temperature continues to drop after you get out of the water. So because of that, it's really important when you get out to actually have a bit of a ritual in terms of getting out, not chatting, not taking selfies, okay? I'm definitely...
so guilty. I'm
so
guilty for this.
So guilty of this. So when you get out of the water, actually what we want to do, it's not about keeping warm at that point, it's about reducing the amount of cooling. So we get out of the water, we get something windproof around us as quickly as possible. That can just be a waterproof jacket, doesn't have to be anything, a fancy swim robe, just something, or just a towel even, just something to keep the wind off, if it's windy, which it often is in Scotland, and around the UK. Get the wind off, get to a sheltered place, get the wet stuff off as quickly as possible, get dry stuff on. If you're wearing a silicone swim hat, just put a woolly hat on top of that. First thing you do when you get out of the water, because that reduces the amount of heat you're losing. It's not necessarily warming you at that point, it's just reducing your heat loss. So, and that's what we're trying to do at this point. We're trying to reduce the amount of extra heat that we're losing, because if there's a wind chill, that's going to take even more of our heat away. And we want to get dressed as quickly as possible. Once we're dressed, having a hot drink or maybe something to eat that will help activate things in our body to start to help us warm up a little. But the most important thing is just to get moving, just to move around. So once you've got your warm kit on, just move around. It doesn't have to be long, just a little walk around. Don't just stay static, because actually at that point we need to reignite that internal furnace and kind of warm up from the inside out. Yeah, it's always great to go to a cafe or something, but my top tip would be, in between you're getting dressed and going to a cafe, even if the cafe is right there, go for a little walk first, just to get moving and to start warming up. It'll make a big difference.
Alice, we have so much to talk about. Like, I feel like we could talk for hours and hours on end, which is just as well, because I am really, really interested to hear more about your adventures, about your top tips, about people that you know, about the science behind wild swimming and open water swimming as well. I know that you have a very, very exciting announcement, which is an exclusive here on Adventure Unfiltered. So what's next?
So one of the things that I'm going to be doing moving forwards is I'm actually going to be starting my own podcast. So I have only told a few people about this, so this is the first time I'm broadcasting it out to the world. But yes, I am going to be starting a podcast, and the name of it at the moment is Cold Water Curious. So it's going to be looking into the science with also expert safety advice and lots of amazing, inspiring swimmers' stories from the world of cold water swimming. That could be someone who has completed an incredible challenge, but it also could be the person who has just taken on cold water swimming as something for themselves and has really felt transformation through that. I'm going to be hopefully interviewing scientists and safety experts and lots of other swimmers. So I'm really excited. As you can probably tell from this podcast, I have a lot to say about swimming.
Yeah,
I can just keep talking all day.
But you have so much to say. You've got so many stories to tell. You're obviously really, really passionate, enthusiastic about it. So I know I'm going to be listening. I think it's going to be a fantastic listen. When do you hope to launch it?
I'm hoping to launch it at some point in the new year. I'm being quite vague at the moment because I have a toddler and things have kind of, I know that I need to get a date in the diary, and I will do soon, but I'm at some point in the new year is when it's going to start. I'm already lining up people to interview, and yeah, it's really exciting. I think for me, it's a way of reaching more people and being able to have another way to connect with that cold water community. So I feel like I have a lot of contacts, connections, etc. I think through doing the podcast, hopefully I will open up that community a bit more, and we can share that really important scientific and safety information with more people, but also bring in, so it'll be a way to share some of that really important scientific and safety information with people, but also bring to life some of those amazing stories that so many people have. Even within our Loch-Inch Dippers group, there's people with incredible stories. Yes, they may not have completed a huge challenge, but they have found transformation through cold water swimming. So I'm really, really excited to see where it takes me. And I also just love talking about swimming. So I'm looking forward to having those conversations with other people who are hopefully as enthusiastic as I am about talking about cold water and open water swimming. So yeah.
Oh, wonderful. We can't wait for it to be launched. And of course, we'll share it as well to let everybody know when it's launched.
Fabulous.
So Alice, this has been an amazing conversation. Before we finish, I've got kind of one final question for you, I guess. So the tagline for Adventure Unfiltered is, "In the wild, we remember who we are." What does that mean to you, Alice? And how has wild swimming helped you reconnect with your sense of self?
Wow. Well, I think that Adventure Unfiltered and connecting with the wild, it is all about connection with yourself, with nature, with others, with the environment, all of these things. And I think in a world that is so online, so digital, so manic in so many ways, being able to come back to yourself in a moment, in nature, is really, really powerful. So many people get so much from cold water, from wild swimming. What people get from it might be completely different from one person to another. But I think it gives everybody something. So yeah, it's just a really special thing.
Alice, that has been absolutely wonderful. I feel totally inspired. And already when you're talking, I'm thinking to myself, I really need to get back down. I used to go down.
Gonna have to come for a swim with me soon.
Oh my God, right, okay. I can't say no now after that, can I? I'm curious about trying an ice dip, but I know I have to build up to it.
You do have to build up, but there is one just very quick thing I want to say is that actually I think as long as you do it with people who know what they're doing,
Yes.
like getting in the ice, there is even more distraction in terms of I actually find it easier to get into the ice than I do when it's just like a flat, calm day and it's just really cold and you just have to like make yourself get in. There's something magical about snow and ice that actually you kind of get into this excited state before you even get in. And so when you're getting in, it doesn't feel like such a big thing.
Yeah.
So I do find that actually breaking the ice it's like its own little thing. It's amazing.
I
it's magical.
feel like I have to do this now. I feel like I have to experience it. Am I looking forward to it right now? No.
And you don't have to. It is
hard. I'm a little
hard.
bit terrified, I won't lie. What a conversation. Even after we stopped recording, Alice and I kept talking, swapping stories, laughing, drifting into that shared excitement that only adventure people seem to understand. Before she headed off to get back to her son, she wrapped me in a big hug and thanked me for creating a space where she could speak honestly and feel that spark of passion for adventuring again. And that's exactly why I created this podcast. I wanted listeners to feel connected to the guests, to be carried into their worlds, and to feel stirred by their stories. So when a guest tells me they've felt heard and transported, I can't help but feel completely over the moon. So thank you so much for listening to this episode. This is a brand new podcast, and any new venture, it takes a lot of time and effort to get it off the ground and in front of the people who would enjoy it the most. It would mean the absolute world to me if you can help by subscribing to the podcast on YouTube. So if you could look for at Adventure_Unfiltered_podcast and hit the subscribe and bell, that would be amazing. You can also share it with an adventure loving friend. See you next week for the first in a 2-part special with the youngest woman to climb Everest from both sides, Molly Hughes. Until then, keep adventuring and don't forget, in the wild, we remember who we are.